everyone. We are here at a special meeting for the Historical Commission. It's the 24th of June at 10 a.m. I will do a roll call.
So I did not prepare anything, so I never.
Yeah. So we have Attorney Nesport online. Devin is here. Walter is here. And you were here. Did you were? And you.
And we have Commissioner Kroll as well.
Judy.
Hi.
Down.
And Camden, are you our attorney from the attorney's office?
I'm a law clerk. I'm one of the interns. They should be joining in a minute.
Okay, yeah, so, and then I think Shoe Chuck is coming in now.
We have listed people who are online. If there's no here.
There he is. Hello, guys. I know a long time no see in person.
Attorney.
Oh,
Hey, welcome.
I put my suit and tie up.
Very nice.
Wow.
Name and home address for the record. Oh, sorry. Okay, so we are here to review the proposed rewriting of our ordinance.
You want me to give you an overview of where we are?
An overview would be fine.
Okay, so approximately 10 to 12 months ago, we submitted the draft rewrite that we got back from the consultant and reviewed by staff. We had looked at that in June last year, took in some of the concerns and comments from the commission and forwarded everything over to the law department to do their review to make sure that whatever we're going to propose to city council is in conformance with Mass General Law and their city ordinances and charter. We got those comments back not too long ago. And having heard some of the concerns from the commission, we wanted to address those. So if you recall from last year, I think the two major sticking points were the single building districts, as well as cost of a report that was being put on the applicant if they want to start a single building district. I think those were the two biggest concerns. There were some other concerns that we tidied up before we sent it over to the law office last year. So I think those were the two I just mentioned were the biggest ones. So having in discussing those two major concerns internally further, if you recall, the sticking points were if someone was to propose a single building district or a district with 5 or fewer properties, the proposal was to have those buildings nominated and put on the national list of the National Register of Historic Places. So
nominated by whom?
Nominated, I guess SHPO, the state's historic. You would have to go through the process to get to Mass Historic to be put on.
But we was not.
It would either the commission or the third party, whoever was going for one of these districts, whether it was the commission itself or the third party, would have to nominate it and get it listed.
And it wouldn't have to be the homeowner to agree.
Correct.
Or the property.
Yes, yeah, and that's that wasn't a point discussed before, but yes. So with that concern, when talking about it internally, staff thought it would be a good idea to have bifurcating the process, so creating two pathways. If a district is being proposed by a third party, then they would have to go through the nomination process, but just to the nomination process. They wouldn't have to also get it listed on the National Register of Historic Places. So that would show that not only does the city think it's historically significant, but the state also thinks it's historically significant. And if you recall, the state has a state where appropriate believes that these districts should be multiple buildings where possible. So the staff's intention or thinking is that, getting it through that to the nomination process, kind of supports that historical significance. We also recognize that it's important to make sure that the commission still has the authority to move forward in accordance with 40C, Mass General Law 40C. So staff's proposal is that the commission could have it nominated as well, or they could make a finding of historical significance in relation to the proposed ordinance. There's a specific section in there that says historic significance. So if the commission by 2/3 vote finds that a building is historically significant, then they could move forward with having one of these single building districts or districts with 5 or fewer properties. So that's where we've come in regards to single building districts or districts with 5 or fewer properties. We understood that everyone was thinking the bar was set too high, and we're thinking that this brings that bar down and still retains the latitude that you might need. And then and I'll just go to the other one real fast, which is the fee for a report. So we were thinking that if a third party was going to initiate this process, that cost was going to be borne by the applicant. And some of the feedback we got from the law department, since that cost could potentially be variable, you have some equity and equality issues there. So rather than having the whole cost borne by the applicant, there would be an application fee of $1,000 that the third party would pay to initiate this process for an applicant to get one of these districts. This fee is in line with some of our other fees that we have here in the city. The special permit fee is around that or even more, and application costs to go to the zoning board of appeals can be more than that as well. So we feel like it's right in line with some other application costs in the city, and each report will probably be more than that, and in terms of the resources allocated, and if it does have to go to an outside third party, it will definitely be more than $1,000. So I think we felt internally that $1,000 was fair. So
I think that's just enough to make it, are you serious? Like some people like, oh, I like the building. I went there as a kid. It's like, how much do you like it? Do you like $1,000 worth,
I was serious.
Yeah.
I think at one point it didn't say anything, it just said it had to pay for.
yeah, it
I
was
think a specific number.
Yeah.
We needed to have a specific number, I think. I'm glad maybe Bob was staying out for a second, though. What does everybody else see?
Yeah.
Speak loud enough so they can hear you online.
So what's the provision if it's excessive, if it goes over it?
It's a flat fee, so if it goes over, then that cost is gonna be borne by the city.
And anything they choose to do on their own, research prices, their own.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm good.
Bill, what does $1,000 pay for an outside consultant to do the report?
It's kind of any other application fee will go into the general fund, and it's in terms of conceptually, that money will be used to pay for an outside consultant, or will be paid for the internal resources to think of it as my hourly rate for needing to pay for a report at PVPC.
Okay. The city realized it could be more. Kevin.
Yeah, a bunch of questions. I don't know if I want to truncate anybody else's comments, but I think that this is raising the bar too high. In a number of different areas. I think requiring that there be SHPO review and nomination to the National Register is, I think, represents a step that is, sort of raises the question of why are we here? but it also, it's just putting more obstacles in the way of people who want to actually engage in historic preservation. And I think the same thing about charging $1,000 fee. I mean, that's a lot of money in a city that isn't washed with money. So I mean, it's like you're asking the resident to pay for. This is not like a commercial operation, right? The zoning permit would be part of the cost of the development. And that would be, part of your cost of production. That's like you factor that into the budget for your project, which is already a 6 or 7 figure project. We're talking about, city residents, are not operating from a commercial perspective on this. I mean, I suppose somebody might have a really long game that they're playing, but, I'm taking it as a good faith effort to preserve the historic fabric of the city. So you're saying, well, we don't really want to preserve the historic fabric of the city, so we're going to set these bars in front of you. And I know that that's not our position, but I think that that's how this comes across. And to that fact, I mean, the first thing that hit me when I was reading over this is the creation of a single building district or district of fire property shall be done sparingly. I mean, what is the purpose of that? Suggesting that there should be some sort of natural prohibition to doing this. It's not an argument not to that there shouldn't be historic districts that are comprehensive or are thinking in a larger area. But it's sort of framing it as if we don't really want to do this.
I think it's because this is for a single or 5 or fewer, and there's already a bunch of historic districts in the area. For example, with this new church that we're thinking of, like it was around since 1980, I think 2001. It wasn't useful, and now all of a sudden someone's trying to do work on it. Like, oh wait, this is historic, just to stop everybody doing. Oh, I like this one building. This is historic. Make every one building historic. It's kind of a little bit of a barrier. Stop the the historic district going throughout the entire city.
Well, or stop the destruction of historic properties. It sounds to me like what the intent here is to stop the preservation of historic fabric. I mean, based on what you just said, you're apparently opposed to preserving that church.
No, I actually went to there as a child. I love that church and it's awesome. But again, it's just when is that enough? It's it's to kind of put a little barrier.
The fact that there was a finding and then there was inactivity is not the cause to tear it down.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the bigger question for me is the word building, right? So the question is, are we talking about, I own a home, it's a house.
Right.
Okay, that's a very different proposal than I have 5 buildings, it's gonna be a lot of money, I'm a developer. So the question is, are we gonna have one standard? Because if it's development, which is what we've seen a lot of when you're trying to do one, or I designate one and you say building, I mean, I come from commercial, so when you tell me building, I'm thinking it's gonna be a business or it's a church, or it's something more than a residence. So the question becomes, if I'm a resident and I have a house and I want to deem it, historic, I think that's a different piece than I have 3 buildings, it's in a campus. It's a different standard. One is I own the house, I live in it, and maybe there's other ways you can deem it that we had spoken about with maybe putting something on the deed that the homeowner might not be aware of. But I think it's a different bar, to your point, as a resident versus what a real building would be. Because if you're talking about 3 buildings that are, 30,000 square feet on a campus, $1,000 in the development is skin in the game. It's part of what you're gonna do is development. If you're $1,000 and I own a house that's worth $300,000 or $400,000, and I want to make this a historic piece, it's a different threshold, right? So
and the intent is not to have, it has to be a very, very, very unique, like house, for example. If it's in a neighborhood, then we understand they all have to be, the whole McKnight historic neighborhood. But if it's a building that's outside of the McKnight, for example, and someone wants to, protect that historically. It's meant to be, it's not really meant to be one building at a time. That's just kind of what the intent is for historic destinations in general.
And to jump off of that, you know, and talking to Mass Historic, Somerville, I don't know if you're familiar with Somerville, but they had over 200 single building districts in their municipality. And what ended up happening is, from a resources standpoint, you know, it just gets convoluted, confusing, and you can lose track of having numerous single building districts. Whereas, as Walter was suggesting, with like a preservation restriction, you'll have a lot more leverage to track those because it's going to be recorded with the deed, and anyone purchasing a building that's going to track and they'll know. I mean, we hear it all the time where people didn't even know they're in a historic district, and it's McKnight or Forest Park Heights, which are two of the largest in the state. So I think, you know, we want to ensure that it doesn't get, you know, we're trying to, I think, maybe respect the intention of, you know, trying to have large districts where appropriate, and kind of to Attorney Shuchuk's point, you know, I feel like sometimes it gets to a tipping point where when it's about to be demolished, then all of a sudden it becomes important. And like, why wasn't it important before? Like, I think we're running into the church. I think the church is a prime example where, you know, we're doing a good job of being proactive. You know, it's not coming up on a demo delay and then we're rushing to get a district. Like, we're seeing this ahead of time and going forward with the district. So, you know, if it's important enough, I think the Historic Commission should be going out and looking at these properties. And
So let me just sort of answer something that Kevin brought up. I think the word that implies we're not interested in historic preservation is sparingly. I'm not sure if that word has to be in the text.
yes, I think that
I think
probably,
the $1,000 fee certainly makes it sparingly, because it's a good amount of money for anybody.
I mean, what about intentionally? Is that a better one?
Well, I don't even know if you.
I don't know, you need, yeah. I don't know, each of them.
I don't even know the year word. If you're interested, get your money where your mouth is, kind of thing. $1,000.
Respectfully, I mean, we don't, maybe somebody here does, but I certainly don't know all of the historical significance of every part of Springfield,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
That's an ongoing discovery process. You know, it's not like it's set in stone right now, you know, the extent of it, and so everything else is just, you know, whatever. And time is also, you know, moving horizon. Right, so at some point in the future, something that today is considered irrelevant may be considered a prime example of a particular historic period in the city.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not offering any examples, but it's, you know, the stuff that we're looking at today as historic was not considered historic when it was built.
Yeah.
You know, it was considered a house.
Yeah.
Right, considered a nice house in many cases, and that raises the question of, does it have to be, you know, are we inadvertently applying sort of a class or ethnic kind of dividing line here unintentionally, but still at the same time? But a lot of the stuff that you know is in the established historic districts were upscale communities, right? It's not a lot of like working class housing that's been set aside, and so this is a prime example of how, you know, somebody who worked in the armory would have lived. Right, whereas in other parts of the world, that would also be considered historically significant. You know, you go to Birmingham, England, and they have, you know, sections of back-to-back houses that have been preserved. You wouldn't want to live there, but you also don't want to lose that fabric. So that's just a for instance of like, you know, what we're considering today as significant, you know, that may be different for a historical commission 10 years from now or 20 years from now.
I think it does work, taking the whole sentence out.
And So, I think that's where I'm coming from, is saying, if I would agree that, it would be better to look at it neighborhood by neighborhood or block by block or something like that. Because, that's usually how the building is happened.
Yeah.
Right, so, I don't have an argument with that. At the same time, if there's an individual or two individuals on the street that have become aware of the significance of their houses and they'd like to protect them, are we putting a, big roadblock in front of them and saying, well, if you want to do that, you're gonna have to go to SHPO, you're gonna have to file for, National Registry, and there's $1,000 fee. I mean, I could see that putting off the whole process for many people. Again, there's variables there, and maybe Somerville is a good example.
Couldn't it be said that by having that $1,000 flat fee, that would rally people on each side of them that probably have a similar house to make that whole street then historic? So they're splitting the fee and you're almost trying to get resources together to make more than one house.
Well, or
sharing $1,000.
Now it's maybe $250 a house and not $1,000 a house, and you're trying to get to efficient use of resources and not just one here and one here and one there.
well, taking that a step further, is there any enthusiasm for, say, a process for waiving the fee or a process for having CPA cover the fee? In other words, to make it is a civic, I would look at it as a civic activity. I'm sure that there's people who are looking at it in a very narrow way of, when I go to sell this thing. But if you go to sell it and you find out that there are in fact all of these, caveats, to the point of, people buy a house in McKnight without knowing that it's a historic district, that is something to be addressed. But, again, is if the initiative is not like this massive, there's 40 residents in the neighborhood that want to do this. Does that mean, okay, well, forget about it,
Well, the way it's worded right now is it's anyone looking to do a single building district or district with 5 or fewer properties. If you're above 5 properties, there's no fee.
Right.
And then all the higher thresholds go away and you get on the.
Okay.
So let me play devil's advocate for a minute. I don't like him as an example.
Why?
He's sorry about that. He's tough. And he owns something. And I'd like to really squash him from doing anything. So I'm gonna spend $1,000 just to stick it to him by nominating his property. Worth $1,000 just to let him have it.
That's just nominated.
And that is
That's
The good part is nomination doesn't make it happen,
Yeah.
but. I see where you're going, but I don't think I really don't think that's relevant to the situation.
Are you gonna nominate my house?
But you can do that right now.
I was gonna say, what's the difference
Yeah.
between today's process and
Yeah.
making the change?
May I, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Because there's a couple of things. Initially, my initial questions were the same as Kevin. I said, is there something about? Would there be some avenue where
Yes.
somebody who had a property, didn't have the money, would be able to follow?
Yeah.
I am happier with this compromise between my position before and now, with a fixed number to look at. That satisfies me, and I know these things, he costs money, we don't, they're lucky we don't, he does. And they do work that deserves, somehow, you can't make them do work and then not try to compensate, so I'm actually okay with this kind of compromise in the wording on it. But part of what I've seen in the 14 years is that people have tried to get single property districts just to get taxes and stuff. I'm sitting here going, I don't think this house is historic enough to do that.
And this is
Yeah,
just.
it's not true, it got voted in, but, so that's another side of that.
This admission by third parties, like the commission can say we want to,
Right.
single with 5 or less historic district because it varies historic. This is just somebody off the street saying, hey, like you're saying, if you want, I need a grant for my house or something.
Right.
This is historic. because of X, Y, Z. Then that's if it's a single person or somebody who's not part of the historic commission wants it to be historic. So look at it that way as well. This is just a third party wanting it to be historic. That's where the $1,000 fee comes in.
Yeah.
And all that. So if you guys, the commission wants it historic, there's no fee or anything like that. I think that's kind of what maybe happening with this church, but
Yeah.
I keep using the church because that's the most,
Well,
most
that's fine,
understandable.
we're staring down.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
But, someone said, hey, I like that. That house there, then it's, I think it's historic, then you need a little barrier because everybody can say they want it historic.
But we discussed in the past, the potential for deed restrictions. And for an individual who wants to protect their own home.
Yeah.
And my question was, what's the legality involved? I don't know if they ever brought it to you, already, when we were talking about that.
Well, we were just kind of kicking that around.
We're just kicking it around, because that would be an easy way to do it.
That's the
If it's-
cleanest and easiest.
If there's a legal way.
Yeah, because I think what's important is if I, to your point, and that's what I worry about, right? So developers, worry about, if I own a house and I've done a lot of work, or I think it's historic, or I've done it historic and I want it to be historic. We've had people that we've come into the commission that they had put it on the deed. And then after they passed away, it was on the deed, they had to come here to try and either remove it. I'm not sure that
Yeah,
petitioners know that might be a way for them to not have to have it a single building historic property, but have it deemed on the deed as with historic preservation. Unless you see things, I don't think you're aware of that. So that could be an option for a resident. I don't know what it costs.
So some of those.
But if the outcome is to protect it in a historic way and preserve what they've had, that might be an avenue that doesn't cost any money and preserves the property.
And I didn't want
$50 for a deed.
Right, I didn't want to suggest it to people without having.
Well, no, and
They could do it.
but I think it's important to bring things forward that might be a solution for,
I mean, the firehouses that got sold, they're under historic preservation. If they have Sumner Avenue, that has a historic preservation. It's gonna be.
Yeah,
Engineering property approved this year.
Yeah, but I mean, the deed, they're doing their own house, their own deed. Yeah, it's not like, hey, I think your house is historic.
That's right,
Like
but
you
we would
said,
have
that's
to, we would have to, right, we would have to know it's just a solid of a protection,
Yeah.
it's something else.
And if you don't mind, and that's where staff is important. If someone comes to me and I want to set up a single building district, informing them that's one of your options, but another option is the preservation restriction, which again, I think that could be more valuable because it tracks with the deed. Yeah.
So do you want to add a comma, and if there is no deed restriction, then the possibility is to nominate.
In a document,
Word for it.
in an ordinance, I don't know if it's necessarily the best approach. I mean, you could maybe put that in the intent and purpose, you could maybe put a sentence in there,
Yeah,
and
Just to let them know that's.
yeah, well, I mean, I think they would know, once
Yeah.
someone asks for a single building district, I can kind of get the info.
Oh, but if you're gonna have a document for people to read, if that's an option, it should be
Yeah,
included
this is
somewhere.
really
Again,
important.
if you're 5 buildings, you probably have an attorney or developer, you get all this, but if you're just a homeowner.
You never hear.
They're not gonna know about any of this stuff, so
Yeah.
if you're gonna have a document for information, I think it would be
Yeah,
important
maybe
for
on the
them,
website
for
or
it to have it
something.
in somewhere.
But I don't think the ordinance be appropriate, maybe on the website.
with intent and purpose.
Yeah, maybe.
You gotta help draft.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, I mean, sounds like there should be an FAQ for the whole process that outlines all of this kind of stuff outside of an ordinance, but it seems to me again, and to play the devil's advocate, there's two different questions. There's one is the historic preservation of the city, and the other is, what are the benefits of having that designation for tax purposes or, other kinds of developmental purposes. And I just fear that like by merging it all together in the ordinance, that the point that ought to lead, which is, in my view, is the historic preservation, and perhaps for others, the important point is that this will allow for tax benefits or something like that. And I just think that we need to we need to consider, how are we advocating for preserving the historic, well, documenting and preserving the history of the area. So, I understand what commissioners are saying in terms of, providing, some kind of a bar that indicates, sincerity. And I also understand and appreciate the fact that this is applying to single building districts or districts with 5 or fewer properties. But since we're right now, well, not right now, but since we very recently, it's come to our attention that there's a campus with 3 properties on it. That is in danger or is threatened or whatever word we like to use. But it's something, it's there's an issue. If you were coming to the commission with those 3 buildings, we've already set this bar. Saying, we'll consider it, but you need to go through all of this. When if, in this instance, we know that they've already been reviewed by the SHPO, they were already. And who already found that they could be nominated for registry status, but then nothing was done. But there could be situations that are properties of similar significance that are not like 5 altogether or the whole neighborhood, but some civic and historical minded citizen wants to bring that to the attention of the city and urge their preservation. We're saying, well, that's great, but it's going to cost you. So that's my concern, not the concern of like somebody's gonna, do something nefarious or, in bad faith. But, I'm looking at the good faith resident that wants to do something to preserve the historic quality of the city. So, are we inadvertently, again, I think that there's good faith here, good faith all around. Good faith in the legal department, good faith here. That that this could be a mechanism, but like I said, have we inadvertently, put a roadblock up.
Can Vanna and Judy, do you have any thoughts?
I'm all set. Thank you.
I mean, if they came here and presented it to the historic commission and the historic commission said, yes, we would consider this, then there would be no fee.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
So that could be an option, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's 1
It's like,
building,
oh,
3
we didn't
buildings.
think about these with the church and keep you bringing that
Right,
up.
well,
No, we didn't even think about that.
So
Like, yeah, this
if
is
it's
where
brought
exactly-
forward by the
yeah,
commission, there's no $1,000 fee,
Exactly, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that would be put on our agenda,
Yeah.
we'll take a vote.
And that would require
Yeah.
2/3 majority, is that what I heard?
Yeah, which is 5 of 7 instead
Right,
of 4 of
so
7.
that would be the no cost way to
Yeah.
bring it forward,
Yeah, if
right?
you don't agree or whatever, if they really want to go, and then it's $1,000 to be in the.
And if the board didn't do it on their own, they could pay
Yeah.
the $1,000
Yeah,
fee
go
and
forward,
still,
Yeah, it's just,
Right.
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I didn't recognize that when I read it, but I do like that a little better too, that we could.
Well, that's what I just said, with the way the word it out, I'm sorry, and you want to, but that's another piece of information that can get on the website. Got historic preservation, restriction, or you can come to us, blah, 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 that's why we're here. Okay.
Would there be comfort with lowering 5 to 4? Is 5 is that causing,
For the ratification.
just in terms of,
Voting.
yeah, I mean, not, at the end of the day, you're endorsing or not endorsing this.
Majority's okay,
Yeah.
majority's okay with me, I don't think we have to have a super.
It's hard not to have a majority, so it's okay.
Yeah,
I like that, I'm okay with that, being just a regular majority.
So it's the first.
No, I'm talking about the 5 or fewer, not
I
the.
thought you meant that.
they just talk about number of
Oh,
buildings.
yeah, I just meant voting.
No,
I'd still be okay with the fight, it have to be just a majority vote
Yeah.
instead of the.
I was talking about the
The number of
properties, yeah.
And you still have, if it comes to the commission can pick it up and there's no law, so. No.
Yeah, it seems like it's an arbitrary number, and any arbitrary number is gonna be just.
Was there any, was there any like limitation of why it would be 5 or 2?
The thought behind it was what would comprise a block essentially. You know, it's once you get over a block size, then you know, you're talking about a major district, right? Or something that's not just one building or 2 buildings. So I'm thinking up near Indian Orchard, you know, that church, what was that church up there? The Barker Street church that we dealt with, you know, that's like 4 or 5 properties that has, you know, a few buildings on it. If you take the example of the church that we're looking at right now, that's 3 buildings on 4 properties.
Well, I would see it architecturally as 2 buildings on either side of a major building, so it's the streetscape as well. That's why 5 makes some kind of sense.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I don't mind it. The whole cart thing, I wouldn't mind.
So did we want to delete the sentence that said sparingly?
I think the paragraph where it's without it.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't care.
I don't know if I haven't been part of a vote for approving a historic district here yet, but has there been dissension on any establishments and districts?
Well, there's certainly been
one of
firm discussions.
Yeah, the State Street one was not made without the property owner wanting to be historic, I remember, so there's.
But like, has there been dissension amongst board members, or has it always been more or less unanimous?
No, there's been ascension for different reasons, not in general, but there have been. I was the dissent on a couple of lines.
I would advocate for moving the word sparingly. Because this is a public ordinance, this is how it's read by the citizens.
So
So, right,
Not code,
Our attorney can suggest what it might change to.
I would suggest just taking that whole sentence out, so it's. It doesn't,
Agree.
it doesn't
I
add
agree.
anything.
I think
Kind of
that
more
is
confusing.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we're going with 1 sentence. We're on our way. We're on our way.
No, I didn't, wait, Burton's already in there. I mean,
it's a big sum.
those were the 2 biggest issues. The rest in here basically just wording, typos, grammatical, or you know,
Well, the other one was the penalty chain, to see the penalty chain.
Yeah,
Where are you?
Maybe I'm sorry, but in the middle of this number 2. Kind of what we're talking about for districts that are initiated by 3rd party and not something like and not endorsed by the historic commission. Because then once if a 3rd party comes in, you guys are like, okay, we agree with it. And $30,000 fee goes away.
Oh, and
So
Yeah.
in order to make it not go away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So also for districts that are initiated by 3rd parties and not endorsed or something like, not endorsed or. Something along the lines where. You know, if someone comes forward with a property or properties and you guys agree with it. Then $1,000, then there's no $1,000.
I think there was some mindset in regards to like if someone gets CPA funding that's contingent on getting a historic district.
Okay.
You know, that's kind of the
Yeah.
mindset.
you want to say not voted?
Yeah, and that.
Sorry.
Because
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I just don't have.
Yeah, I can't pick how to say it right now, but
We would have to vote to make it significant.
Yeah.
Consider it significant to remove the $1,000.
yeah, something.
So sentence. Were you finished with that one?
No, yeah, we can work on
I
that.
just put a general question, rather than something specific. Should the ordinance include language that says what the property owner needs to submit to us for any of those?
that's more guidelines.
Policy
Yeah,
policy, city council.
You really don't want to put that stuff in ordinance because then to amend it is a feet and a half, so. I have to get
As long as it They have the power to create those guidelines.
Yeah, you see policies and, yeah, bylaws and then policies and procedures are
Yeah,
more
Yeah.
flex to whatever the.
Yeah, I just want
Sound
some bite on that stuff, because we very rarely get any, oh, it's gonna be beautiful.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean.
Yeah. No, I think it's safe to leave that up to the guidelines, and maybe we do have to have a separate guideline on application
Yeah.
submittals or something like that.
Kevin,
Yeah, I think in terms of the guidelines, that's where you could call out what the criteria are according to the
Yeah.
SHPO and according to the National Registry. So that the applicant gets an idea that it's not just that you've got a good story.
Yeah.
And some postcodes, you know, that you've actually done some research, and this is why you think this is important to have it to preserve.
Yeah.
So are we gonna change the 2/3 vote majority to simple majority?
I'm more than fine with
And
it. Yeah, it's very easy.
I think this might be
yeah,
where
this is that.
there's some-
Does the statute saying we need 2/3?
we have 2/3 and like other, I guess we would have to.
What's ours say?
I don't know, what our say, and I think this is where, you know, where the bar is set a little bit higher to get the single building district. I think that was one of the bars that we were looking to set.
I
Entirely.
understand that, I'm okay with it either way, we gotta do something, you know, to make some improvements, but.
Yeah,
If it's just, if it was solely just to raise the bar, I don't think that that's an issue here, I think that's great majority is still that bar, this doesn't change that.
I think that the two,
I saw this on my Facebook page, is this open?
Yep.
Oh, okay, I'm Sarah Jones.
Nice.
Jones
Jones.
Properties.
Steve.
Let's have a seat.
I think,
Anyway, right, in the front, might as well.
I think the 2/3 bar, what it shows is that, you know. Since the single building district, at least in Springfield, is a rarity, it shows.
I don't, I can, now I can go back to the other two guys and see if they can do earlier.
Oh, somebody's talking about.
Mike's
somebody
talking about it, yeah.
So Mike, but if it's 5 or more, is it still super majority, just a.
Super majority is five is
You
five.
changed the approval vote from the commission based on a number, the more or less number, which doesn't sound right to me. We should have one type of vote that we are moving it forward. The same for either. They have to make their case. If they don't make it, you're moving forward. If they do, we do, but they shouldn't have a lower standard because it's more property. That's just my. People vote otherwise, I can live with it either way. Me, that vote should be the same whether we're getting either one property or 10 properties. Yes, they present.
Yeah, for consistency, it's the same consideration.
Right, I mean. I think that's. That appears to me that they're making it, that. You feel like it's more of a problem than it really has been, so. It just isn't, comes up, but it doesn't.
So if
come
it's
up that much,
let's
it's gonna
just
be
sort out
here
the meeting, so for
every
that,
week.
what do we usually have for number of counts? We have 7, how many on average do we have in a meeting?
Probably
5?
6,
6?
yeah,
So what would be,
Five, probably.
you'd need 4 out of 6?
so you need 5 out of 6.
Okay, so you almost need 100% for it to carry.
Right,
So the question is that a reasonable standard?
I just think it's raising the bar for some.
But if you have 4 people that are attending, you need all 4. So it's. And
Right,
the
which I don't think is a fair standard,
But it has to, you have to have at least,
right?
you
I
have
don't
to have
think
it.
that's a fair standard if you're gonna do. Yeah, I just think when you put like real numbers in,
Yeah.
the counselors, and then you apply the math,
Yeah,
it doesn't, I think that's too high a standard.
yeah.
You have to have at least 4 though, because that's.
Well, that's the commission's, yeah, you have to have 4 for a quorum, but if you're gonna say 2/3, that would mean you need unanimous every time you're there, right?
But it's different. 5 or less, takes 5, maybe more than that takes 4. That's just inherently unfair to be relative to go out. They make their case and we vote, it should just be, yeah, it's just fair.
The same for.
Yeah. I don't think having that one more vote's gonna change the outcome on any single district, single property districts we have in front of it.
It would have the effect of tabling the discussion, because if there's not enough people to vote on it. It's like it just get
Right.
kicked down the street.
Yeah.
So that's not efficient.
But it's, I mean, there's some proposals.
So the suggestion would be simple majority, is that what?
That's my suggestion.
Okay.
I would agree with E2. Then. A majority of the vote provision recommendation established for both districts and the city council shall be made by a majority vote. In addition to the other requirements provided in subsection H below. State about 2/3.
Yeah.
And that's the same for the other ones.
So, yeah, everything else in the bigger packet is largely just comments from the law department.
There's nothing, I've read, read most of it, nothing jumped out as other than reasonable correction or, there's nothing really.
So G should be by a party other than the commission approving. What language do we use? Approving the historic significance.
Well, I mean, I think, one of the reasons why this was somewhat of an issue was that, with some of the CPA awards being, it was tying basically the commission's being forced into creating a district so someone can get money. And so the commission wasn't out there initiating the creation of this district. It was someone wanting money from CPA to get a district. So like in that case, that would be someone initiating that process.
Which, by the way, I don't really have a problem with, because this commission, as far as I've been on it, has never had the resources to go out and do due diligence and research. And, find houses and find streets to see what is historically significant. We've had enough to do what we're doing. And I think the CPA is actually benefiting the historic commission in the city, because they're bringing things forward, or petitioners are bringing things forward, getting resources to actually be able to do something about their historic property. And then it comes to us, and oftentimes they've pulled history out, or you call pull history out. So I don't think that's a bad thing, because then it still has to come to us. And if we, say, well, you know what, it really is not significant. But in my experience, most of them, there's been a voice or an argument that says, yeah, you know what, it's right in the district, it's old enough, it's had some stuff to it. So I actually think it's been good that CPA brings these things, and the awards for most of the properties I can remember all made sense.
Yeah, and so, if it's going to be, as far as like the application cost of $1,000, perhaps CPA is the one that spots the application fee.
Or it comes before the board, and the board does it, and there's no fee. If
I guess
there's not 1,000 people coming with 1,000 different.
Yeah, it feels like it's a way of intentionally obfuscating the ordinance. If someone just, I filed for a CPA application, I need this to be a single building district, and then the commission's just like, okay, we'll do it.
The reasons are, I just need it for a grant.
Yeah,
I don't know that I've ever sat here and just said, okay, I'll do it because you did so.
yeah.
I'm
oversimplifying
stuff in front, I know you are.
it.
I've never sat here and said, because you're going there again, we'll do this. They had to put real stuff in front of us. Age, historic history, and they do it well, so usually, usually they do it and go, well, that's.
Well, to your point, once it's been through CPA has done a really good job at vetting and evaluating. It's a very arduous process with them, with many meetings, and they really make sure that
It's historic.
the owners, well, not just that it's historic, but that the owners vested themselves in the process. They've had to get 3 different quotes. They had to quote all the work that was there. They had to make sure it was the right type of vendor. They've been vetted with multiple meetings. So by the time it gets to us, CPA has done a good job of making sure it's a legit project, the homeowner's vested, they're vested in the project, there's time and attention into it, and they've done the historic piece of it. So our experience has been, at least my experience has been, by the time it comes to us, the homeowner is just as vested as anyone else. So I haven't seen any of them to be this like flighty.
No.
Oh yeah, and the CPA said I have to make this historic, so I don't know how any of this works, but if you guys can just do that, that'd be great.
And like I said, I'm definitely oversimplifying it, but it's, yeah, it's a.
I understand what you're
Yeah.
saying, but I'm just saying, I'm just trying to create advocate for a process that what I see or what we see on a month-to-month basis.
Yeah.
Can be applied. And if there's something that's an exception, we try and offer something on the exception, but if for the most part, things that come forward are vetted and legit.
Yeah.
And that's 90%, let's deal with the 90% because it makes sense. If
Yeah.
there's 10% or 1 in 10 projects where somebody's not vested, then you have an out or an avenue for them. You know what I mean?
And it's just, in that case, the project itself of establishing that district was coming from a third party, not the commission. Like the commission wasn't out there. We found this property, and that's, yeah.
So are there any other sticking points so that this ordinance can be brought to see?
So.
Well, the one of the places I saw something, I had to ask a question, the one for that, is that really funny, but
Here's why you're looking, maybe I can just pick up my point again. Good. You talked about we have the right to create guidelines,
Yes.
and it says we can adopt from time to time and amend the guideline.
What section is that?
94911.
What those are that?
49-11, page 9.
Yeah.
Number 1, set forth the criteria for one or more exterior features. And we're setting forth criteria, blah, 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 in the guidelines. But am I being too picky to say, I'd love for it to say, we set the criteria and the submission requirements. And here's the reason why I'm saying it. Remember on Longville Street, I suggested the guy go.
Yeah.
I nailed it because there was no way of getting anybody to understand the volume of that structure that he wanted to build until he agreed with me to go put the 4x4 posts in the road home. And then all of a sudden, oh, wow. So I want to have some right to say, hey, you need to submit this, you need to submit that.
Yeah.
It's not just criteria. Because they can just say, yeah, we're gonna comply with the criteria. I want to see it.
I mean, I'll defer to you, but I don't think there's any issue putting a sentence in there saying the commission can set its own guidelines for application requirements and.
The criteria and submission requirements, that would be great.
It seems to me that, this is all saying design criteria instead of historic criteria, if you ever include that. This is not a question of just what does it look like. It's like, what's the history?
But it's already there because of the history. It's already been voted to be there because of its historic significance.
I'm just talking about how it's describing guidelines.
I guess the line is what has to be in the ordinance and what we can put in the guidance.
You just want, for a point of emphasis, historic,
Yeah.
and this whole thing is historic, and the
Right.
only reason they're bringing it forth is historic,
Yeah,
but you want it. In these pieces,
Historic
just illustrate, you want the word historic to reinforce that that's,
So
that they should be thinking.
Title
you should think of that.
Designation of historical or historic guidelines, or just in the title.
So I'll use my example. My home was built in 1921 for so-and-so, blah, 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 and I'm trying to keep it that way. I'd like to replace the windows to match the blah, blah, blah. Add some of the historic significance to the discussion.
Certainly on the point, certainly in terms of what we're telling the applicant or the prospective applicant.
I think it's a great suggestion, because it just reinforces what the whole discussion's about and the whole application's about, so
Yeah.
it's not like it's out of line to insert the word historic, they should be thinking about what it looks like. It's the looking glass, and of course, our looking glass is to try and keep it historic, right?
It's really 9/11 was that historic. or
Yeah.
guidelines.
Somebody can argue what that means, but the whole purpose of this is preservation of that, right?
Page, so Kevin, for, 4911,
9.
Attorney Chuchak was saying designation of historic guidelines, does that work for you? Or are you wanting historic to be put elsewhere?
No, I use it as an adjective or, you know,
Same as submission guidelines, same.
historic and design. You know, historic and design.
Historic, and so you were saying in like subsection 1, it would be set forth historic.
Historic design criteria. Does that work?
Or are you saying, or does saying designation of historic and design guidelines?
I would say historic and design.
Okay. Historic and.
Yep.
That's somebody in there.
That's not gonna be an issue. And the only other thing that came up is, I think the law department is discussing, this will probably be an internal discussion about municipal protocol. That was something that there was a note that I received. The municipal protocol starts at page 12. There were some internal notes on the document from the law department, so they're not here just because that's, I assume, privileged, but there's a discussion about yeah, they don't know what to do with the municipal protocol. So but you know, it's pretty much, is it gonna stay in and written or should it be taken out? So if it's taken out, I think we have guidelines that are loosely that talk to this. So it'll just be addressed by guidelines instead of being in the ordinance, and we can amend it later. So I think that would be the only note that you should consider. You know, as we look towards the endorsement vote, that this one section could potentially be taken out, or it might be able to stay. And I said 4913, it's actually 4914, page 13.
Yeah.
And then the only other edit that I would have to make is, a while back, we had passed the standard guideline. I did put it in, never mind. So appendix 49.1 is standard guidelines for those districts with no guidelines. So, strike that from that. But otherwise, I think everything that the legal department was proposing was, you know, reasonable from what I thought. It was just a matter of making edits so it either read better or was consistent with state law. And they did add in the appeal process, which is good because that was.
Those were supposed to.
So from my understanding and what we reviewed today, then recommended changes by the historic commission are striking the first sentence in the purpose paragraph, paragraph 2. Reducing the votes from a supermajority to a simple majority under E2. And adding in that language on page 9, adding the historic language, historic and design rather than just design.
Yeah, submission requirement.
And the submission requirements, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, are we gonna discuss the letter from the Preservation Trust?
Oh, yeah, so we did get 2 public comments.
We have 2 of those.
Yeah. One's from the the Preservation Trust, which is actually the letter from last year. And then I also received an email this morning that is referencing the ordinance from last year as well. So they had an old version that they were submitting public comment on, but they did submit the comments. Not technically a public hearing, but I don't think there's any issue in terms of taking this on.
Open to it.
Yeah. Mhm.
So I could read this.
Oh, here.
We have 5 of these.
I know, but you read it in.
Yeah, I was thinking they would be read in, so.
Okay, dear Andrew and Springfield Historic Commission, thanks for sharing the draft of the proposed historic preservation ordinance changes. The Board of the Springfield Preservation Trust has reviewed it in detail and would like to share a few observations and suggestions to make it even better. 49.2, definition of historic site should include historic landscapes that are both natural and designed, as well as areas, lands, parks of significance. Historic significance. 49.6, $10 minimum fine is very inadequate to get anyone's attention and even suggest a lack of seriousness. The minimum should be $50, if not more. 49.7. Springfield Historical Society no longer exists. Society for the Preservation of New England Antiquities is now called Historic New England. The Board of Realtors is now named Realtor Association of Huntington Valley. 49.10, the Massachusetts Historical Commission does not respond to general inquiries about if the building meets National Register criteria. This is Springfield Historic Commission that should apply the National Register criteria through study and then submit the report to MHC. It has to start with local commission. We would point out Mass General Law, Chapter 4C does not require the buildings in local historic districts to be eligible for the National Register. And 49.10F, the cost and expense of the commission for the preparation submission of all reports shall be levied against the applicant. The creation of historic districts is the responsibility of municipality, residents should not have to pay for it. Springfield preservation has been a great asset to the Springfield, the city and its neighborhoods. Historic designation in districts have significantly increased property values and thus tax revenue. The city should be encouraging further designations of protections for the benefit of everyone. Our historic homes, houses, and districts have been instrumental in attracting new people to Springfield. Thank you for reviewing our comments. New one.
Just for the record, that was submitted last year. Some of those edits were already made
Correct.
and discussed. Yep.
Yeah, some of them. So there's the last one about the cost. Being born during the next bill, I think we already talked about the $5,000, we agree with that.
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioners,
Yeah,
I apologize. I have to leave for another meeting. I support your activities. Thank you for allowing me to be here. Bye.
Thanks for being present.
thank you. Good to see you.
I have a couple of comments on the letter.
Go ahead.
So I agree with the definition of the historic site comment. I don't know if what was currently there is exclusionary. Any building or site. That seems to me encompass the concept of landscape. That I would propose putting landscape in there just to be. Just clear.
I would be okay with that.
And I think the comment of fine is also worthy of some discussion.
Absolutely, that's what we just said.
Yeah.
I think that's state law. Yeah. I mean, at
It's
least
10 to 500 something.
I can check. Oh,
But the change here was 500. It's a different fine.
Oh, was it?
One of the red lines I saw was 500
Didn't say.
for a penalty.
yeah, it's
Is
page
that a different one I'm reading?
section 13.
Yeah, 10. Not less than 10, and more than 500. In accordance with Nassau, I see the
Or C section.
Anything there? Okay, so you want
Final violations. I'm not there, so you $50.
yeah, it's $10, right?
Yeah.
Levied some $50.
Yeah.
What page are we on?
So we've already gone over the question of $1,000, why would $500 be
That's a fine.
It's already
That's a
the
fine,
state
that's
law.
different, yeah.
I know it's a fine, but it looks to be it's not gonna be a deterrent.
Right. We found that out.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're just boxed in by.
Right, but we can't change it because it's a state.
Yeah,
Well, it's not less than 10, but not more than 500.
I mean, we don't have to start at 10.
And that's each day.
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
it's a daily. So it fixes windows, it's $10 a day. Yeah, that's
Every day.
yeah. Yeah. Perfect.
I think that $50 is a better, is a better base on.
No, if we're bound by the law, that would be to me, 50 should be minimum as well, but I think that would just be, we would have to, that's something about this.
Yeah.
We are able to
Yeah,
determine.
it's
that.
10 to 500.
We would like, but we'd be asking you guys to do it,
Yeah,
so we would just have to say what we want.
Yeah.
And send it,
as long as it's not.
so we do have the control over the 50, but I don't think the legal department's gonna tell us whether we can change it in this order.
Right.
Okay. And I'm pretty sure they're gonna say
City
no.
council will be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it
Right.
does make sense if you're gonna have a flat fee on the application.
Well,
If you're trying to have a penalty, someone reads 10 to 500, and it's gonna be like, oh, well, buy me 10.
yeah, I'm not gonna care.
You're trying to get people's attention on a penalty, even if the totals per day, and if, when they read that, they see $10, they're not really gonna think too much of it. And then on the back end, how do you collect it or penalize them? They say, well, it's been 60 days, and only 20 grand. You're really gonna get 20 grand from that, is you gonna get out, and
Yeah, you put it on there.
you need something that you're trying to not have to touch it, you're trying to get people to see and go, oh, okay, that's gonna be the thing. I guess they better go through the process.
Let's do $500.
Well,
Make it 500.
I think you got more than 10, they say 10 to 500, and 10 is expectation.
Yeah, you can, that's what the,
Yeah, I mean, if you do,
Each day during the portion of which violation continues to exist.
if you read the second paragraph, I think we even start. This,
yeah, I think it goes
yeah,
further.
instead of fine
Fine.
not exceeded, not to exceed $50, the levy, so, I think we're bound to what it says because of state law. But as it was mentioned before, we don't have to start there, we probably wouldn't start there.
Right, so not less than 10.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Do something higher.
Yeah,
Chair of the commission, can you elaborate on this fee that?
it's a fine, so if someone's doing, since there's a violation out there. Staff or the commission can levy a fine until that violation is.
It says down,
You
it
give me an
says,
example.
for minor violations, including but not limited to installation of a fence, flagpole, or minor structure, a fine of not less than $50 will be levied against the offender.
Yeah.
And that by the stop work order. Within 1 week, should the offender refuse to comply with the first levy fine, a fine not to exceed $150 may be levied. And after 1 week after that, if they still refuse, it can be up to $500 per day. Major violations. Yeah. So replacement of windows and other modification of the exterior fine starts at 150. Then 1 week later, if they don't comply, then it can be up to 350. And then a week later, you have to file a lease offer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Since we've
it'll be so
only like twice that I can remember, have we just been line against and not ever. Haven't happened before in a long time, but it never happened.
Actually, the way this reads, it doesn't say per day, this would be specific. The state statute says per day, what's here in writing. Is, $150. It's a flat fee.
It should be.
It says, well, maybe levy each.
It was designed-
Maybe levy each day thereafter, the last couple words of the.
Okay. It was designed to tier in because, giving the opportunity for someone to cure the violation.
Each day thereafter, okay?
So, if it's going on in week 3 and they're refusing, we have major problems.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's where.
Okay, so it's a step,
Yeah.
these are all steps, so it's
Yeah.
150 in the first week, if you ignore that. It's 350, and then if you still ignore that,
Then
then
it's,
it could be 500 per day after that.
yeah, and then you really just start.
Okay, that, all right, now I get it. Hopefully whoever's reading this gets it. And doesn't just say, oh, well, $500, so it's good, whatever.
Said $10.
Right, well, it's, again, you don't really wanna have to do that, you're trying to discourage people from cheating. And not have to spend time and effort trying to cover stuff, which is you end up doing, and ends up just being time, right? How many people, yeah, he's trying to avoid that, he's trying to get people to do the right thing.
We had the other email comment. And this is referring to, an older version, the first version before the commission even looked at it, so.
Regarding morning meeting about updated preservation ordinance, I am following comment 4910. It's nonsensical. The text reads notwithstanding the foregoing of any. To the contrary, in this chapter, single building a district containing 5 or less properties may not be considered the designation of the historic district unless all primary buildings in the proposed have been determined to be eligible to be placed on the National Register of Historical Places by the Massachusetts Historical Commission, State Review Board, and the United States National Park Service. This is nonsensical because the State Review Board of the MHC does not do eligibility determinations. National Park Service only does formal DOEs, determinations of eligibility in very specific instances as the request of the State Historic Preservation Office or as part of the review and compliance. Whoever wrote this doesn't understand that the National Register evaluation or listing process. It thus follows that the following 2 sections, 2 and 3, are also nonsensical because they are based on an incorrect understanding of the eligibility determination process. We drafted this ordinance text. What were their qualifications? It would be a big problem for the city to pass an ordinance that includes fundamental errors. There may be others too, while Mass General Law 40C, Section 3 allows a municipality to amend the local historic district ordinance unless the city wants to create an ordinance that actively undermines the ability to create local historic districts. Maybe that in the incentive for whatever reason. Maybe that is the incentive for whatever reason. This portion of the ordinance at least will not work in practice because these conditions cannot be met, owing to the fact that this is not how the evaluation process works. Then for Tommy, Adam Gilbert, caution, this email originated outside the organization. Please use caution. Thank you. So is there anyone else who would like to add or any other points of discuss so that this can be finalized and sent to City Council?
I'm all set.
Okay.
I would just say you're making a motion to endorse the ordinance with the 4 proposed amendments, I guess, right?
Yeah, changes or edits to the
Section
section.
that we endorsed the proposed ordinance, we put in all suggested amendments made today's meeting.
Motion's taken by many of them. Second, thank you. Before we take the vote, should I answer to any public comment regarding these things?
You still end up with a period of time around.
Yeah, so I don't know the process thoroughly. I imagine this is gonna go to commission or the city council and be referred to committee.
Yeah.
And then.
Yeah.
And then.
Yeah, be 2 employees.
Yeah, so, yeah, there will be 2 additional meetings with the city council plus imagine a city, subcommittee.
But it's not a problem if I'm on, it's not a problem if I'm on for. So,
And we already read these, so that would be
Yeah.
fair. Yeah.
Never hurts.
okay, so before we take that vote, I'll just open up to the public. Do you have any comments that you'd like to share? Okay.
Yes, I'm just hoping that you can elaborate on the 4 amendments since I came in a little bit late. Would you kindly elaborate on these amendments that you're proposing.
So,
So the first one we're taking out this first sentence here, of two.
you don't have that one.
This first sentence here. Yeah. Second one, we're taking out. 2/3 of every.
This is the second.
Yeah. Right here.
And then on page 9 of the big packet, we're gonna add a subsection that says that the commission may adopt, set forth application submission material requirements.
Is that it?
That's for
That's it.
Come to the penalty and stuff. You seem to
like the mayor did before us.
You seem to like that.
Somebody's gotta be something like
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Okay, if there's no other further comments from the public or floor development and any of that. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Kira?
Yes. So this is Kira Holmes representing Springfield Preservation Trust, 74 Walnut Street. Yes, you read the letter into public comment, but again, we do oppose the application fee. The other thing too that we are looking into, essentially, that's an issue, is essentially if you try to contact again a National Register of Historic Places or even the state office in order to get essentially them to look at the building or anything before the application, it's not going to work because unfortunately these offices do not get back to people regarding historic properties. So that's going to be an issue for people if they need to contact somebody in that office in order to have it approved as a third party. And I do also want to compliment the commission as well as the law department for taking so much time to update the historic ordinance. We do want to see the historic ordinance become, part, so that way there can be historic districts again, but again, there's still some things that we do object to, as you saw through the letter. Yes, I know it's outdated by a year, but we wanted to make sure just to point out those points in the ordinance. So.
Thank you, Kara. Okay, I'm guessing there was no one else. Okay, so I'll bring it back to the commission. We have a motion and a second, and open for any other further discussion before I take a vote.
Please, just for the clarification on this for myself, because I'm getting old, just what Kara just said about that.
In what section is it
About this?
that part has been updated and taken out completely. It
just says
nominated. Yeah.
Okay.
So you have to follow the regular nomination process.
Oh,
So there's
That's what I saw you going second. Who said this before?
Okay.
there's no advisory opinions or anything like that being
It
proposed.
just has to be nominated. Okay, good.
Okay, so I'll take a vote. Kevin?
Yes.
Walter?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Vincent?
Yes.
And myself is yes. Thank you very much. Thank you, all department, for all the hard work that you did.
Nice to see you.
Okay, so is there anything else is what you're looking for?
Yeah.
Feel free to come over and person motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. You guys some.
Listen, you come in person, put your dog on Zoom, we're only gonna be able to be fine, right?
Adjourn, do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Thank you.